How's it going, my friend? It is Danny here from projectmanaverse.com, real world technical project management for beginners. And today I'm going to explain what a project comms plan is, or communication plan is. We call it a comms plan. So I'll tell you what it is, I'll tell you why it's important, and I'll tell you some of the details that sit behind it and the purpose of the document. So let's jump in. What is a project comms plan or communication plan? Well, in a nutshell, it lists all the key communications that you need to make to your project stakeholders throughout the life cycle of the project. That's basically what it boils down to. And that is an important document because it prepares you, it helps with your stakeholder management process. Your stakeholders are all the people that have an interest in your project, and you need to keep these stakeholders engaged. You need to keep them well informed because they might be able to have influence over your project. They might be impacted by your project. They might be working on your project. You might need them to do something. So it's really important that you keep these stakeholders engaged. And the comms plan is just a tool, a control to help you do that and to help you plan for that. Because if you don't keep them engaged in the way you should do and you have poor stakeholder management, that can lead to problems on your project. They can cause fuss, they can cause noise, they can block things, they can make things difficult, and they can risk the implementation ultimately of your project. So they can throw blockers in your way, which is not what you want. So a comms plan, a communication plan, will help you with your stakeholder engagement. It's a really good tool. And in the real world, they're not always used, I'll be honest. They're not always required. It depends on how big and how complex your project is. Very complex projects with lots of stakeholders and lots of moving parts should really have a detailed comms plan. If it's a more localized, simple project, you might get away with not having one, but that's down to you. So that's what it is. I've told you why it's important. So let's jump into the specifics of a comms plan. So when I do a comms plan, I like to do it in two parts. Number one is the chronological linear timeline of all the key communications you're going to need to make throughout the life cycle of the project, and they're the specific comms. So you want to document those along the way and figure out what they all are, get them all down on paper. That's your part one. Your part two is a comms plan for just general comms that you're going to have to make at general parts of the project, just basically status updates. How is the project doing? Just kind of more generic comms. The first part is your very specific, unique comms, I suppose, and the second part is your general comms. So let's talk about part one first of all, those unique comms. First thing you want to do is get together with your team and think about what are the comms we're going to need to send out. And hopefully by this point, you've already identified your stakeholders because that's going to be important for the comms plan. So I'm assuming you've already done that. So the first thing is to get a timeline and think about, right, what are all the key points where we're going to have to send out a communication to people, and write down what those communications are, the high level summary of those communications. Once you've done that, for each one, you want to really think about what is the purpose of that communication. Why are you sending it? Don't just send communications for the sake of it, because there is a tendency to do that sometimes. You can over communicate things when you don't really need to. So really think about what's the purpose of this communication. Is it necessary? Just a little checklist. Just think about, do you need to send it and why? If you do, all good, keep it on your comms plan. Then you need to think about who are the stakeholders. Who does that communication need to go to? Is it for everyone? Is it for a select few? Is it for end users? Is it for some other departments that are impacted by the project? Is it a risk department? Is it the more senior stakeholders? So who is that comms going out to? List those stakeholders on there. Next thing you want to do is write down, when is it going out? What's the actual date you're targeting to send that comms out? Get that on there as well. And by the way, when you're doing this, it kind of goes without saying, it's best to do it on a PowerPoint in a table or an Excel, so you can get it in a nice grid, so you can look it across and hopefully try and get it on a few pages if you can. So that was the next one. When is it going out? When is the date of it going out? The next one is, what is the format of the communication? Are you going to do it just by email? Is it going to be on a SharePoint? Is it going to be in a Power Pack? Is it going to be on a conference call or a town hall meeting? Is it going to be on one of your regular updates you have? So decide what is the format of that comms. Next, decide who is going to actually write it. So who's responsible for writing that communication. You also want to think about if it needs a sign off. Does it need to be signed off by anyone, because some communications can be quite important and quite sensitive, and if you get them wrong or the tone is wrong, you might ruffle feathers and cause noise and cause escalations, which result on distractions on your project that you could well do without. So make sure you think about, does the comm need to be signed off, and if who is that sign off person? Then you might want to think about, is there someone that just wants to proofread it? Who's a proofreader of the comms? And that's probably goes before the sign off. Obviously it goes before that. But if you want to be very careful and check the grammar and check the tone and all that, it always helps to have a second pair of eyes on the communication. Then it goes to your sign off if it needs a sign off. And then you want to agree on there who is actually responsible for sending the communication or publishing the communication or delivering the communication, if it's a verbal one or some kind of video call or whatever. So that's probably your key points in your communication plan. And then obviously you want just a little note to say if it's been done or not, has it been done? And if you do that, that will really help you to, as I say, help with your stakeholder engagement, your stakeholder management, or make you think about all those comms you need to send. And yeah, it's a good tool. Now, I talked about two parts. The first part was the specific unique comms that are separate to each, I suppose, milestone of your project or key junctures of your project. The next one is more generic, and that's just general status updates. So when do you want to send those? Do you want to just have them as part of your project working group, your regular call, or do you want to have it as part of your steering group, or do you have like a business engagement call? Those kind of things. You want to capture where you're going to make your general status updates and just check-ins with those parts of the business that you should be checking in with regularly. So you want to get that on there as well. And again, just go through all the things I mentioned earlier to get that on your comms plan too. So that's what a comms plan is. To give you some examples of the kind of things you want to communicate, one might be that the first one is just a general update about the project. What is it doing? You know, what are the general timelines, just to make everyone aware that it's coming. Let's say you've got this project coming, you're going to deliver a new software that people can use to help with their accounting process, and it's going to be available in 1 year. Just some general facts about the project, so you start to engage the people, and they might think, oh, I want to get involved with that in that project, so they can reach out to you if they want to be involved in the project, if you haven't reached out to them already. So that's a good example. Another example is giving people a heads up that you're going to want to get some end users or business people involved in the testing phase. So you're going to be reaching out to some people to ask if they can get involved in testing. That's another general one. You can give updates in terms of any system outages that are coming up. That's a big one. You definitely want comms around your go live dates of when that's happening, and just remind people that it's coming up and they need to be ready for that. You definitely need comms about any changes to the system. If you're changing a system or upgrading it or making it better or even just tweaking it, make people aware of what those tweaks are so there's no surprises. Those are the kind of comms you want in your chronological timeline, the first part of the communication plan. So that's what a comms plan is, and I've said why it's important. And as I say, you don't get them on every project. It depends on the complexity. If it is a very complex project, you'll need a comms plan. I know this is all about IT projects and technical project management, but sometimes you might be involved, or what you're doing might result in a change to the operational design. So where people are working, it might impact them in terms of where they're moving to, and you might have some very sensitive comms in that. It might impact people in a negative way. Sometimes people might be losing their jobs off the back of it. So those are very, very sensitive comms, and you will need a very tight comms plan that has been signed off. So make sure you're doing it for those kind of things. But a very localized, simple project, you don't have to spend ages on there. Now, the thing about a comms plan, they're not very hard to do. You can do them pretty quickly. Even if you just get a couple of pages together with your team, it will take about an hour. And there's no downside to that. You haven't really lost much, even if you never use it. But it gets you thinking about those communications, and it just helps you. It's a control to stop you from slipping up and putting your foot in it by either sending out the wrong comms or missing comms to people and not letting them know about things. So it is a good useful tool to have. That's pretty much it. So I'm going to wrap up the video here because we're almost at 10 minutes. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this one, hit that subscribe button. I'm doing daily videos all about technical project management. So if you're new to project management, be sure to tune in for more videos like this one. Okay, until tomorrow, please take care.